By the end of this video, you're gonna know every technique it takes to be an expert at playing, improvising, and using arpeggios on the piano. And more importantly, these techniques are going to help you use them in a truly musical way, make them your own, and you're going to be able to improvise with them and compose with them. Believe it or not, there are actually only 7 simple techniques that you need to learn, and then boom, you are going to be improvising and using arpeggiation like an expert. All right, let's dive right in. This is a highly useful arpeggiation technique. Now, here's the thing. Most of the time when people will teach you your first arpeggio, they're gonna teach it to you in root position. So if you have an F major triad, 1, 3, and 5, they're gonna teach you to play it like this, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. So I'm not knocking it, but to be honest with you, on a musical level, you're not going to use that nearly as much as you're going to use the one I am demonstrating to you right now. So that is going to be the not first, but second inversion of this triad. So we're actually starting with our thumb on the 5, and it's 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3. I'm showing you this because this one is way more useful in a musical context, and there's a lot we can actually add to it and do with it to make it really, really cool. But first things first, let's just learn this one as is. Again, we're gonna do thumb, index, 4th finger, and repeat that. And we're also going to be kind of flowing our hand to the right as we go. I'm exaggerating it here to get smoothness. And you kind of want your thumb to already be moving up to hit it. Otherwise, what you want to avoid again is kind of having it sound like you're accenting different notes so that it's kind of obvious that it's an arpeggio, like this. That's a very classic beginner mistake, so you want to try to get it smooth. Now here's a really cool thing about an arpeggio like this. You might think, oh, this is great for F major, but there's a lot more to it, and this tip is going to be absolutely critical going forward with most of these arpeggio techniques. Here's the thing, an F major chord doesn't just work in F, right? It actually also works over D minor. It also works over C. Guess what? It works over B flat major. Also A, E flat. I think you get the point. There are so many different options for bass notes that we can use this over. So check this out. Let's get compositional right away. I'm gonna write a little song using just this arpeggio and some bass notes. And now check it out if I actually play this over some more complex chords. So I added in a couple little tiny embellishments, but for the most part I was literally just using this arpeggio, and now you can hear how incredibly versatile this arpeggio is. And that's why it's the first one I showed you. Now we're gonna move a little quicker as we move on to number 2. All right, so that's the foundational step 1. But in step number 2, we're now gonna go over a really important fundamental change that we're gonna make to our original arpeggio shape. This is gonna open up a ton of possibilities, so check this out. Now we're in the key of F minor. Already a pretty fun shape. Here's what's really important now is instead of doing a 3-note arpeggio, or even in F minor, now we're adding in a 4th note. And as soon as you get into 4-note arpeggios, it is now the perfect amount of notes to fit into 4/4 time. We can do 1/8 notes, and then we basically can align our arpeggio right in 4/4. So for example, 1, 2, 3, 4. See how that aligns perfectly in the tempo? Because we have 4/8 notes, 4/8 notes, 4/8 notes, 4/8 notes. We have these groupings of 4. And this opens up so many possibilities when it comes to improvising lines and using arpeggios, or also composition. And it's just like our first arpeggio, except now we are going to add this fourth note, which is technically, we could say the 11 in a chord or the 4 of the scale. So we have 5, 1, flat 3, 4, or 11 if we're actually doing like a full minor chord up to the 11. And so check this out. It's awesome. And if we want to do major, check this out. And again, I'm showing you how we are making these really musical. So I highly encourage you, as you're learning these, to take them and try putting them into a musical context. That's a huge part of the process that is going to make them so much more useful for you more quickly. All right, technique number 3 now is actually where things start to get really fun and interesting. But before we do that, please hit that subscribe button if you want to take your playing and musical knowledge to the next level in 2025. All right, let's keep going. So check this one out. All right, so this is really cool because now we're actually combining 2 shorter arpeggios. We're combining this F major arpeggio and actually using our pinky for the 4th note. And then we are doing a G major arpeggio. This is actually G major in 1st inversion. And here's the interesting thing, then we repeat the 2 arpeggio pattern. So we're actually combining 2 arpeggios here. And now I got to give you a pro tip alert, okay? So this is an important pro tip. Why does this work? Why does using a F major and G major combined arpeggio actually work over F? Well, because at the end of the day, an arpeggio, it's just like a chord and it's just notes that fit from a scale. So if the notes in the arpeggio fit a specific scale or chord, it's going to sound good. Now that may sound simple, but I just wanted to give you that tip because that opens up such a world of possibility for what you can do with pretty much any arpeggio and how you can change an arpeggio to make it work with a different chord. So in this case, we have the scale F Lydian. So that is a major scale, but with a sharp 4. So F major would have B flat. This has B natural. And all the notes from these 2 chords are in F Lydian. So we're getting this F Lydian major sound. But what if we wanted to make this one F minor as well? We'll check this out. So every note I just played was from F minor and B flat major, and together these are all in the F Dorian scale we use for F minor, especially in jazz. So literally, and so that's the beauty of all these techniques that I'm giving you. If you follow them in order, you are fundamentally building different levels of musicality that you can use arpeggiation for. And you can actually use it in different keys for different chords. All right, so next up, we're gonna start getting into some really interesting and mesmerizing techniques from the great composer Chopin. So I'm going to call this one the Chopin Double-Tap. And where I got it from originally is Chopin's C minor etude that sounds like this. I gotta practice that some more. Haven't done it in years. However, look at the power of arpeggios. This whole thing is literally just arpeggios and creates this beautiful blanket of sound. So I want you to be able to do that, and it's a lot easier than it looks. So the technique we're doing here is a little double jump. We're doing thumb, index, pinky, and then on that same note, we jump to the thumb. So it's this little motion right here. And in jazz, I often hear this shape. You can also do it on the way down, as I'm about to show you. So here's how it works. The notes are 1, 4, 5, 1, and the fingers are 1, 2, 3, 5. Thumb, index, middle, pinky. And so at the pinky, we jump. We do a little hop and bring our thumb down. And on the way up, we can do it like that, and we go back down, and now we jump from the thumb to the pinky. It sounds like this. and it sounds really good. So that's a really, really fun technique. Try it out. And again, you can use it on all sorts of different shapes. You don't just have to do this one that I just showed you. These exercises are not about just learning what's on the page. They're also about adapting them to your own ideas. So again, remember to do that. All right, so this next one I'm calling the Chopin widespread, and this one comes from his Etude in C major. So here's the very first chord from that. We also go back down. Gonna do it slow because I have not practiced that up to tempo in a while. But we're getting this amazing width and spread. So this time, instead of jumping up and landing the same note with the thumb and pinky, we're actually going all the way above where the thumb's gonna land. We get this beautiful widespread arpeggio. This one also with the C would sound nice over B flat. And of course, as usual, I want you to actually master the technique first, get it nice and smooth, use the ergonomics of your hand and wrist to allow yourself to flow as you go up. Don't just try to stay completely straight and use the finger strength. That could lead to injury. Instead, again, flow. Your hand can actually turn a little bit as you go. And again, we can actually change the notes in here. We could make it C altered. Sounds really, really interesting. Could do one that's F minor. And so on. You can find this technique also super useful in different contexts. And pro tip here is using the pedal. So use it to create a bed of sound as opposed to just one note at a time. But in the context of improvisation, like let's say you're playing with a jazz piano trio, you definitely could also use it without the pedal. Something like this. Get these super cool, widespread open lines. All right, we're about to jump into a completely new level here because now technique number 6 is actually using two hands. So we're getting into two-hand arpeggios. But first, if you want a comprehensive list of these interesting arpeggios for both one hand and two hands, be sure to check out the resource that I created called 36 Runs and Arpeggios. I'll link to it in the description. I literally created this specifically so that people could work on their arpeggiation techniques, but it also contains some other great ones that you've also heard played before by some of the great pianists of all time. So be sure to check that out if you want to go a little deeper, and also if you want basically just like a PDF cheat code of awesome sounding arpeggios. All right, let's get into these two-hand arpeggios now. All right, so this first two-hand arpeggio is a really important technique, and what we're basically going to do is one single upwards arpeggiation with both hands. So it's almost like we can do a arpeggio that's twice as long, and then we repeat it and we get this really interesting cascading effect. Check this out. Now you've probably heard this sound before. It's very dreamy. We're using augmented triads. So in the key of D, we have the root, major third, and the sharp 5. That's the sound of augmented. And then in the right hand, we just go 3, sharp 5, 1, and do that again. So we're actually going 1, 3, sharp 5, 1, 3, sharp 5, 1, 3. And then what we do is we repeat that up an octave. We get this beautiful flow. Of course, I'm holding down the sustain pedal as well. So it sounds like this. We can go down as well. Just repeating that same shape. Once again, it doesn't have to be this de-augmented. This technique is so useful for so many things. There's F minor again. So this technique is so amazing if you actually want to get both hands sounding like they're essentially one smooth single arpeggio. But what if you want to get more interesting in the sense that you actually want the hands to be able to create different harmony? So you're actually creating two different unrelated sounds that eventually form one gorgeous chord or one gorgeous just bed of sound. Let's get into technique number 7. Almost did 8. 7. So one thing that's really cool here is because we're using two hands, they don't necessarily both have to do the exact same amount of notes or the same rhythm. So check this out. I'm gonna do a triplet in my left hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4, duck-a-duck. Triplet, 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 triplet. And then in the right hand, I'm gonna do 16th notes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, like that. So it's gonna sound like this. And then we're gonna go a lot faster and check out the sound we get. And so that's how we're creating this beautiful two-hand harmonic shape and sound. And it's not as predictable because the two hands are doing slightly different rhythms and different amounts of notes. This is yet another technique I highly encourage you to try with different chords as well. All right, so to summarize, I highly recommend that you try these techniques and master them in step-by-step order because they do essentially get more difficult as you go. And remember the pro tip that's really, really important. Take each of these and shape them into different chords, use them in different contexts, use them to create your own music and improvisation, and that is how they're going to sink in. Try this for literally just 5 minutes a day, going in step-by-step order, and I can almost guarantee you that you will see incredible progress. Learning all 7 of these techniques is going to completely blast open all of the possibilities that you have when it comes to both improvisation and composition. So now that you know these 7 incredibly important and fundamental arpeggiation techniques, I think you're ready to learn some more really interesting arpeggios that are specifically used quite frequently in jazz. So I'm putting a video up on screen. Be sure to check this out next. It's gonna really help you in that direction. All right, see you next time.